She was dying in an alley on refuge station Omega-7, bleeding light instead of blood, and the human who found her should have run. Everyone else had. But when Commander Thesara Velnath asked through her delirium why Benjamin Corvus was still there, he gave the answer that would change everything. Because you asked me not to run. This is the story of two broken souls who discovered that healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means finding someone brave enough to stand in your pain and say, I'm not going anywhere. If you've ever felt too damaged to be loved, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story will show you what it really means to stay. Let's begin the story. The thing about Refuge Station Omega-7 that most people never understood was that everyone there was running from something. Benjamin Corvus had learned that truth 9 years ago when he first stepped off a transport ship with nothing but a medical bag and a photograph he couldn't bear to look at. At 51 years old, Ben had the kind of tired that sleep couldn't fix. His gray-streaked hair, pulled back in a ponytail, revealed a face mapped with lines that told stories he'd rather forget. The worn leather jacket he wore had been with him through every station, every planet, every emergency room improvised in cargo holds and abandoned warehouses. Tonight, like most nights, he was finishing a 16-hour shift at the makeshift clinic in Sector 7. The mixed habitat sector of Omega-7 was home to 180,000 beings, 60% of them alien species, and all of them struggling to survive in the neutral zone where no government wanted to take responsibility. Doc, you heading out? Mira, a young human woman with cybernetic implants running along her jawline, called from behind the reception desk they'd built from salvaged cargo containers. Yeah. Need anything before I go? Ben's voice carried the accent of his Brazilian heritage, softened by years in space but never quite disappearing. Just be careful. Security reported some disturbance in Sector 6. Might spill over. Ben nodded, shouldering his bag. Careful was relative when you lived in a place where the Rotary Council of 23 species could barely agree on waste disposal protocols, let alone law enforcement. The corridor between Sector 7 and his apartment in Sector 9 took him through a maze of commercial zones where merchants from a dozen worlds hawked everything from Terran coffee to Zithian neural enhancers. The artificial gravity hummed beneath his feet, and somewhere in the station's guts, the life support systems recycled another day's worth of air for nearly 200,000 residents who'd all chosen to disappear. Ben had been one of them once. Now he just existed. He was cutting through a maintenance alley, a shortcut he'd taken 1,000 times, when he heard it, a sound that 12 years of surgical practice and 9 years of battlefield medicine had trained him to recognize instantly, the labored breathing of someone in respiratory distress. He froze, his hand instinctively moving to the emergency kit in his bag. Then he heard the groan, low and suppressed. The kind of sound someone makes when they're trying desperately not to draw attention to their agony. "Hello," Ben called out, moving toward the sound. "I'm a medic. I can help." What he found in the shadows made him stop breathing. She was collapsed against the wall, and in the dim lighting of the alley she seemed to glow. Her skin was a pale lavender that shimmered with iridescent patterns pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Her hair, if it could be called hair, floated around her face in deep indigo strands that moved like they were underwater. But it was her eyes that caught him, silver, pupilless, and rolling with a pain that seemed to go beyond physical. Blood pooled beneath her, except it wasn't red. It was luminescent, a blue-silver that painted the alley floor with light. "Sildari," Ben whispered, recognizing the species. Telepathic empaths, rare in this sector, and this one was badly hurt. He dropped to his knees beside her, his trained hands already moving to assess the damage. Energy weapon wound through the shoulder, cauterized but deep. Blood loss significant. But something else was wrong. She was trembling like she was being electrocuted, her elegant three-fingered hands pressed against her temples. "I'm here to help," Ben said, keeping his voice calm and level. "I'm a doctor." Her silver eyes focused on him for a moment, and he felt something. Not physical, but like a wave of emotion washing over him. Despair, terror, and underneath it, an ocean of loneliness so deep it made his chest ache. "Fuga!" she gasped in accented English. "Run! I sense you, your pain, so deep, like drowning. I cannot control it. Your grief will drown me." Ben understood then. Telepathic overload. She wasn't just wounded physically. Her empathic abilities were malfunctioning, absorbing the emotional pain of everyone around her. And in Sector 6, where refugees and criminals lived on top of each other, that meant she was drowning in a tsunami of suffering. Every logical part of Ben's brain screamed at him to do what she said. This woman was clearly in trouble, the kind that followed people. The energy wound suggested hunters. The telepathic crisis suggested she was dangerous to be around. Any sane person would call station security and walk away. Instead, Ben pulled off his jacket and pressed it against her shoulder wound. "I'm not running," he said firmly. "I'm getting you out of here." "Why?" The word came out broken, confused. "You don't know me. I could be criminal, could hurt you with my mind. You're hurt. That's all I need to know." Ben slipped his arms under her, surprised by how light she was. Sildari bone density was lower than human, he remembered from his xenobiology training. "Can you hold on?" She tried to speak, but her eyes rolled back. Her whole body seized, and Ben felt another wave hit him. This time it was his own emotion, reflected back and amplified. The grief he'd carried for 9 years, since Sophia and Luna had died in his arms. Their bodies racked with fever while he, immune carrier, watched helplessly. The Sildari woman gasped. "So much death in you. How do you carry this? How do you breathe?" "One breath at a time," Ben muttered, lifting her. "Now let me worry about keeping both of us breathing." He carried her through the back corridors, avoiding the main thoroughfares where security cameras might catch them. His apartment was small, barely 300 square feet of living space that he'd converted into part home, part emergency clinic. Medical supplies lined shelves he'd installed himself. A narrow bed sat in the corner. No pictures on the walls, no personal touches, just the tools of survival. Ben laid her on his bed and immediately began working. The energy wound first. He cleaned it, applied synthetic skin, administered broad-spectrum antibiotics that worked on most humanoid species. His hands moved with the muscle memory of thousands of procedures, but his mind was racing. She was still seizing periodically, her empathic abilities out of control. Every few minutes she'd gasp and her body would arch like she was being struck by lightning. Ben realized she was picking up emotions from the entire sector. Hundreds of minds, all their pain and fear and anger flooding into her consciousness simultaneously. He remembered a technique from his trauma therapy days, back when he'd been trying to cope with his own PTSD. Grounding through regulated breathing. Could it work for telepathic overload? "Hey," Ben said, positioning himself where she could see him. "Look at me. Just me. Block everything else out. Focus on my voice." Her silver eyes found his, desperate and drowning. "Breathe with me," Ben said. He took a slow, deliberate breath in, counting to 4, then exhaled for 6 counts. In through the nose, out through the mouth. There's only you and me in this room. Nothing else exists. He kept breathing, making it loud enough for her to hear, keeping his own mind as calm as possible. If she could sense emotions, maybe calm was contagious. He thought about the meditation exercises his therapist had taught him. He imagined his grief as a river, acknowledged but not overwhelming, present but contained. Slowly, incredibly, it worked. Her seizures lessened. The wild rolling of her eyes steadied. She began breathing in sync with him, and as she did, her iridescent patterns stopped their chaotic pulsing and settled into a slower rhythm. After 20 minutes, she fell into what looked like genuine sleep. Ben checked her vital signs. Pulse steadier, breathing regular. The wound had stopped seeping. He sat in the chair beside the bed, suddenly exhausted. His hands were shaking. When had that started? He looked at them, These hands that had once performed delicate surgeries, that had held his daughter while she burned with fever, that now patched up whoever needed patching in the forgotten corners of space. There was a photograph in his jacket pocket. He touched it through the fabric but didn't pull it out. Sophia's smile. Luna's laugh. 9 years gone, but the ache was fresh as yesterday. "What am I doing?" he whispered to the empty apartment. Harboring a fugitive. Getting involved in something that would definitely end badly. He should call station security. He should wake her up and send her on her way. But when she'd been seizing, when he'd felt that echo of his own grief through her empathic abilities, he'd recognized something. The specific texture of profound loss. This woman had lost someone too. Lost them in a way that left scars on the soul. He couldn't abandon someone carrying that weight, even if he should. Especially if he should. Ben pulled his jacket over himself and settled in the chair. If she woke up and tried to leave, he'd at least know. If hunters came, he'd hear them first. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was all he had. As he dozed, he didn't notice the way her iridescent patterns pulsed gently in the darkness, or how her breathing remained synchronized with his, or how for the first time in 27 years, a Sildari woman was resting peacefully in the presence of another being's emotions. When Thesara Velnath woke 12 hours later, the first thing she noticed was silence. Not actual silence. The station's life support systems hummed, and she could hear movement in the corridors beyond. But there was no telepathic noise, no crushing wave of 1,000 minds screaming their pain at her. Just one presence, steady, sad, but controlled, like a lighthouse in a storm. She opened her eyes to find the human from the alley sleeping in a chair beside her bed, his head tilted at an angle that would definitely cause neck pain when he woke. He draped his leather jacket over himself like a blanket. His face, even in sleep, carried the weight of old sorrows. Thesara carefully probed the edges of his emotional presence. Usually, she couldn't control her empathic sense. Ever since Kael'ren had died and their soul bond had been violently severed, her abilities had been broken. She'd feel everything from everyone, all the time, an endless cacophony of other people's suffering. But this human's emotional presence was different. Yes, there was grief, an ocean of it. But it was somehow contained, like he'd built channels for it, ways to let it exist without consuming him entirely. Being near him was like standing in the eye of a hurricane. The storm still raged, but there was a center of calm. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Her shoulders screamed in protest. The movement woke him. His eyes snapped open, and he was on his feet instantly, his hands moving to check her pulse before he was fully conscious. "Easy," he said. "You were badly hurt. The wound is stable, but you need to take it slow." "Why am I here?" Thesara's voice came out hoarse. "Why are you here? You treated me. You could have left." The human, Benjamin she remembered from his jacket's identification badge, looked at her with those deep brown eyes. "You asked me not to run, so I didn't run." I said that? She had only fragments of memory from the night before. Pain, telepathic overload. This human's face, calm in the chaos. "You were delirious, but yes. You said, 'Please don't run away like everyone else ran.' So I stayed." Thesara felt something she hadn't felt in years. A flutter in her chest that wasn't pain or fear. It took her a moment to recognize it as hope. This human had stayed. Not because he knew her, not because he was bound by duty or honor debt, but because in her darkest moment, she'd asked him not to leave, and he'd honored that request. "That was stupid of you," she said. But there was no bite in it. "I am clearly in trouble. Staying makes you complicit." "Probably," Benjamin agreed. He moved to his small kitchen unit and started preparing something. "But I stopped making smart choices a long time ago. Coffee? I do not know what that is. It's a Terran ritual of punishment disguised as a beverage. Fair warning, it tastes like regret." Despite everything, Thesara felt her lips twitch. Was that humor? In the middle of her worst crisis in decades, this exhausted human was making jokes. "I should leave," she said, trying again to sit up. "I have put you in danger enough." "You can leave when you can stand without passing out," Benjamin said, handing her a cup of water instead. "Doctor's orders. Now, do you want to tell me why someone shot you with a military-grade energy weapon? Or should I just keep guessing?" Thesara took the water, studying him. She could sense his sincerity. He genuinely wanted to help, even though helping her could cost him everything. "Why do you care?" "Because someone has to," he said simply. "And I happen to be here." She sipped the water. It was cold, clean, better than anything she'd had in weeks of running. "I am a fugitive. I witnessed something I should not have seen. People with power want me silenced. Hence the energy weapon." "Hence the energy weapon," Thesara agreed. "I have a contact who is arranging transportation off the station. I need 72 hours, 3 days. Benjamin nodded slowly. "You can stay here, but I still need to go to the clinic. People depend on me. You work without payment." Thesara had probed enough to understand that much about him. "Payment doesn't bring back the people you've lost," Benjamin said quietly. Then he seemed to realize what he'd revealed and turned away. "There's medical supplies if you need them. Food synthesizer is basic but functional. Try not to open the door for anyone." He was leaving. Actually leaving her alone in his apartment. A complete stranger who'd brought nothing but danger into his life. Thesara reached out with her empathic sense, trying to understand his motivation. What she found made her breath catch. This human carried death. 2 deaths specifically. A woman and a child. The grief was so profound, so guilt-ridden, that it had become part of his identity. He blamed himself. He thought his very existence was poison. "Benjamin," she called as he reached the door. He turned. "The people you lost. You loved them very much." She watched his jaw tighten. "Stay out of my head. I cannot help what I sense. Your emotions are loud, but I want you to know, what I feel from you is not just grief. There is love. So much love that it survived even death. That is rare. That is precious." He stared at her for a long moment, and she saw his hand move unconsciously to his jacket pocket, touching something inside. Then he left, without another word. But she felt his emotional presence shift, just slightly. The tiniest crack in the wall he'd built around his pain. The next morning, Thesara woke to the smell of something burning. She sat up carefully, her shoulder still aching but manageable, and found Benjamin in the small kitchen area, staring at what appeared to be smoking protein blocks. "This was supposed to be breakfast," he said, sounding more confused than apologetic. "I'm a surgeon, not a chef." "Clearly," Thesara observed. "Is it supposed to be producing smoke signals?" "Only if I'm trying to alert the fire suppression systems." He poked at the charred protein with a utensil. "I usually just eat ration bars." "For 9 years?" Thesara had spent the previous evening carefully exploring his apartment with her functioning hand, and she'd noticed the complete absence of anything resembling normal domestic life. No decorations, no entertainment, just medical equipment and the bare minimum for survival. Benjamin glanced at her sharply. "How do you know it's been 9 years?" "Your emotions are marked by that time. Whatever happened to you happened 9 years, 3 months, and roughly 12 days ago. Give or take. Traumatic emotional markers are very precise." He turned off the food synthesizer and leaned against the counter, suddenly looking older than his 51 years. "That's incredibly invasive." "I know, I apologize. After Kael'ren died, my control shattered. I sense everything whether I want to or not." Thesara flexed her fingers, testing her shoulder's range of motion. "It is like being in a room where everyone is shouting their innermost pain directly into your ears, constantly, forever. The only peace I have known in 27 years is when I am unconscious." 27 years? Benjamin turned to look at her fully. You've been dealing with telepathic overload for 27 years. Since my partner died, yes. Sildari formed soul bonds, permanent telepathic connections with chosen mates. When he was killed, I felt his death inside my mind. The bond broke. It broke me with it. Benjamin was quiet for a moment. Then he opened a storage unit and pulled out actual food packages, the kind you had to prepare manually. Okay. We're not eating ration bars or my disasters. I'm going to actually try to make real food, and you're going to tell me how someone survives 27 years of that kind of pain. Badly, Thesara said. I survive badly. Yeah, Benjamin said, and there was understanding in his voice. I get that. They spent the next hour in what Thesara could only describe as companionable dysfunction. Benjamin did in fact manage to prepare something edible, though it required 3 attempts, and Thesara talking him through the instructions displayed on the package. She couldn't help but notice that he seemed surprised by his own success, like the concept of taking care of himself beyond basic survival was foreign. When you were a surgeon, Thesara asked as they ate, did you cook then? My wife Sophia cooked. She was incredible at it. The words came slowly, like he wasn't used to saying them out loud. She could make anything taste amazing. Our daughter Luna used to say her mother could make ration paste taste like birthday cake. How old was Luna? 7. His voice cracked slightly. She was 7. Thesara absorbed this, feeling the edges of his grief through her empathic sense. She'd been careful not to probe deeply, respecting his privacy as much as her broken abilities allowed. But the pain leaked out of him like radiation. The pandemic of 2094. Benjamin's head snapped up. How did you? Your emotions carry the specific signature. Medical helplessness combined with personal guilt. You were a doctor during a plague. You could not save them. She paused. And somehow you blame yourself for their infection. I was the vector. The words came out flat, dead. I worked 96 hours straight at the hospital. Came home asymptomatic. I was immune, didn't know I was carrying it. I infected them both. They died in 4 days while I watched, perfectly healthy, unable to do a single thing. So you left, Thesara said softly. You left Earth, left your practice, left everything, and you have been punishing yourself for 9 years by existing but not living. I don't deserve to live. Not like before. Not when they can't. Thesara felt a sudden spike of anger, not at him, but at the universe that created such cruel coincidences. I understand that feeling. After Kael'ren died, I wanted to die too. The pain of the broken bond was excruciating, but Sildari lived 600 years. I was only 187 when he died. I have, centuries left to carry this wound. How do you do it? Benjamin asked. How do you keep going? I told you, badly. I take suppressants that dull my empathic abilities but make me sick. I avoid crowds. I take work that keeps me isolated. I have not touched another being voluntarily in 27 years because touching amplifies the empathic connection. She gestured around his sparse apartment. You do the same thing. You work yourself to exhaustion. You refuse to form connections. You live in a space that deliberately holds no memories. We are both performing the same slow suicide, just on different timelines. Benjamin looked at her, really looked at her, and Thesara saw recognition in his eyes. The kind that only comes when one broken person sees their fractures reflected in another. When I was carrying you last night, he said quietly, and you were in telepathic overload, I felt it. For just a second, I felt my own grief the way you were experiencing it. It was like drowning in an ocean with no surface. Yes, that is exactly what it is like. But then you stabilized. When I started breathing exercises, grounding techniques, it helped. Thesara nodded. Your presence is unusual. Most humans have chaotic emotional patterns. Yours is organized. Painful, yes, but structured. Being near you is like standing in a quiet room after a loud party. I can finally think. Benjamin stood up and started clearing their plates. I need to go to the clinic. But if you need something while I'm gone, there's a communicator on the table. My code is 7 Alpha Corvus. You trust me with access to your communications? You've already been in my head, he said with a slight smile. Seems like communications are less invasive than that. After he left, Thesara explored his apartment more thoroughly. She found medical texts in 3 languages, equipment for treating species she'd never heard of, emergency supplies organized with military precision, and in the pocket of his jacket, hanging by the door, a photograph. She shouldn't look. She knew she shouldn't. But her curiosity won. The photo showed a man who looked like Benjamin, but younger, happier. His arm was around a beautiful woman with warm brown skin and brilliant smile. And sitting on his shoulders was a little girl with curly dark hair and her father's eyes, laughing at something off camera. Thesara felt tears prick her eyes. This was what he'd lost, this joy, this love, this entire life. She carefully replaced the photo and noticed something else. The jacket's lining was worn where he kept the photo, like he touched it compulsively. A ritual of remembrance and punishment combined. The communicator beeped. Thesara picked it up carefully. Don't look at the photo. Benjamin's voice was quiet but not angry. I felt the emotional shift through the empathic connection. You looked at it. I apologize. I was curious. Her name was Sophia. She was a teacher. Luna wanted to be a marine biologist. She loved dolphins. There was a long pause. I haven't said their names out loud to another person in 9 years. Thank you for trusting me with them, Thesara said. Another pause. Are you okay? Any pain? Physical pain is manageable. The telepathic noise is quiet. Being in your space helps. Your emotional residue is calming. That's possibly the weirdest compliment I've ever received, but I'll take it. She could hear the slight smile in his voice. I'll be back around 1800 hours. Try not to let any assassins in. I will do my best, Thesara said. After the call ended, she sat in his chair, the one he'd slept in while watching over her, and let herself feel something she hadn't felt in 27 years. Safe. The second day, things shifted. Thesara woke to the sound of Benjamin already awake, doing what appeared to be exercises, push-ups, sit-ups, the kind of routine that suggested military training somewhere in his past. You are disciplined, she observed from the bed. He paused mid-push-up. Habit from medical school. If you don't take care of your body, it can't take care of patients. Yet you do not eat well, do not sleep properly, and work yourself to exhaustion. Do as I say, not as I do. He stood, barely breathing hard. How's your shoulder? Healing quickly. Sildari regenerative capabilities are efficient. Good, because I need your help with something. Thesara sat up, intrigued. My help? There's a patient at the clinic, hybrid child, part Zentari, part human. She's in pain, but I can't figure out where. Her biology is unique, and medical scanners aren't giving me clear readings. He looked at her hesitantly. Could you use your empathic abilities to sense where the pain is coming from? If it's not too much to ask. You want me to do a telepathic diagnostic? If that's what it's called, yes. Thesara considered. Using her abilities deliberately, especially on a child, was risky. But the way Benjamin asked, with genuine concern for his patient's well-being, made her want to help. I can try, but I will need you there. Your presence grounds me. Without it, I might get lost in the telepathic noise. Then I'll be right there, he promised. They went to the clinic together, Thesara wearing a hood to hide her distinctive Sildari features. The clinic itself was impressive in its resourcefulness. Built from salvaged materials, it nonetheless had functioning medical equipment and a staff of volunteers who clearly respected Benjamin deeply. The child, a 6-year-old girl named Kessa, lay on a medical bed, whimpering. Her skin was a patchwork of human tan and Zentari blue scales. Her eyes were large and trusting when she looked at Benjamin. "Hey, Kessa," Benjamin said gently, taking her small hand. "This is my friend Thessara. She's going to try to help figure out what's hurting you, okay?" "Okay, Doc Ben," the little girl said. Thessara knelt beside the bed and placed her 3-fingered hand carefully on Kessa's forehead. She opened her empathic sense, bracing for the usual onslaught of emotion. But Benjamin moved to stand behind her, his hand on her shoulder. And suddenly, there was that anchor again, that quiet center. She dove into Kessa's emotional landscape and found it. Pain, sharp and focused, in the girl's lower right abdomen. And something else, something growing where it shouldn't be. Thessara pulled back and immediately looked at Benjamin. Appendix. Human appendix inflamed. But it is complicated by Zentari physiology. The location is shifted 3 inches lower than normal human anatomy. Benjamin's eyes widened. That's why the scanners couldn't find it. They were looking in the wrong place. He turned to his assistant. Prep for surgery. Appendectomy. Modified for hybrid physiology. Over the next 3 hours, Thessara watched Benjamin transform. The exhausted, grief-haunted man disappeared, replaced by a surgeon of extraordinary skill. His hands moved with absolute precision. His focus was total. He saved that little girl's life with an expertise that took Thessara's breath away. Afterward, in the small break room, she confronted him. "You are brilliant. What I saw in there, you could work at any major hospital in any system. Why are you here?" "Because major hospitals ask questions. They want to know where you've been, what you've done, why there's a 9-year gap in your practice." He cleaned his hands methodically. "Here, no one asks. Here, I can just help people." "You are wasting your gift." "My gift killed my family," he snapped. Then softer. "I'm sorry. That wasn't fair to you." "No, I understand." Thessara moved closer. "But Benjamin, you did not kill them. A virus killed them. Circumstance killed them. You were simply unlucky enough to be immune." That's what the therapist said too, right before I left Earth and stopped listening to therapists. What if they were right? Thessara touched his arm gently, the first time she'd voluntarily touched anyone in 27 years. What if you have spent 9 years punishing yourself for something that was never your fault? He looked at her hand on his arm, then at her face. What if you've spent 27 years isolating yourself from connection because you're terrified of losing someone again? They stood there, 2 damaged people speaking truths that hurt, but needed to be said. "Maybe we are both idiots," Thessara said finally. "That's the first thing we've completely agreed on," Benjamin replied. That night, back in his apartment, they talked. Really talked. Benjamin told her about his childhood in Sao Paulo, about medical school, about the joy of his first successful surgery. Thessara told him about Sildari culture, about meeting Kael Ren at a diplomatic function, about the beauty of forming a soul bond. They also talked about their losses, not the pain of it, but the love that had existed before. The good memories. Benjamin told her about Luna's laugh, about Sophia's terrible jokes. Thessara described the way Kael Ren would send her mental images of sunsets from across the galaxy. "Do you think they would want us to suffer like this?" Thessara asked, as the station's artificial lights dimmed for night cycle. "No," Benjamin admitted. "Sophia would be livid. She'd tell me to stop being dramatic and go live my life." Kael Ren would say the same. He would tell me that honoring his memory does not mean dying with him. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Benjamin said, "Your contact, the one arranging your transport, have they responded?" "No," Thessara said, and Benjamin felt the spike of worry in her emotional presence. "They should have by now. We'll figure it out," he promised. "You're not alone in this." "Why?" She turned to look at him, her silver eyes searching his face. "Why are you doing this? You could have left me in that alley. You could have turned me in. Why do you keep staying?" Benjamin was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Because for the first time in 9 years, when I wake up, I feel something other than guilt. I feel purpose. Not just duty, not just penance, but actual purpose. You needed help, and I could give it. That means something." Thesara felt tears form in her eyes. "You are a good man, Benjamin Corvus." "I'm a broken man who made a choice," he corrected gently. "But maybe that's enough." The second day ended with both of them sleeping. Benjamin in his chair, Thesara in his bed, their breathing synchronized and their dreams, for once, not entirely nightmares. The third day shattered their fragile peace. Thesara woke to the sound of forced entry. Not the door, but the ventilation shaft. Her military training from her diplomatic security days kicked in instantly. She rolled off the bed, grabbed the plasma pistol she'd hidden in her jacket, and positioned herself. 2 figures dropped from the ceiling. Mercenaries, wearing environmental suits that masked their species. Military-grade weapons, professional movements. "Commander Velnath," one of them said through a voice modulator, "the Confederacy wants to speak with you. Come peacefully, and the human won't be harmed." "And what a generous offer," Thesara said. "I decline." She fired, hitting the first mercenary's weapon and destroying it. The second one lunged, and Thesara's combat training took over. Even with her injured shoulder, she was formidable. 27 years of diplomatic protection work had made her lethal when necessary. But 2 against 1, and she was still healing. The fight was brutal and close quarters. She managed to incapacitate the first mercenary, but the second got a hit in, right over her injured shoulder. Pain exploded through her, and her empathic shields shattered. Suddenly she wasn't just feeling her own pain. She was feeling theirs. The mercenaries' cold professionalism. The residents in nearby apartments. Their fear and anger and loneliness. The whole sector's emotional weight crushing down on her. She collapsed, screaming, her mind fragmenting under the assault. Through the telepathic noise, she heard a new voice. "Get away from her!" Benjamin burst through the door, alerted by his apartment's security system. He took in the scene instantly and did something incredibly stupid and incredibly brave. He threw himself at the remaining mercenary. No training, no weapon, just desperate protection. The mercenary hit him hard. Thesara heard ribs crack, but Benjamin's intervention gave her 3 precious seconds to recover. She channeled all the pain, all the empathic overload, and released it in a telepathic scream directly into the mercenary's mind. He dropped like a stone, unconscious. The apartment fell silent, except for Benjamin's labored breathing. Thesara crawled to him. "You idiot. You wonderful, stupid idiot. You could have died." "Couldn't let them take you," he gasped, holding his side. "Promised I'd stay." "Your ribs are broken." "Probably. Can you walk? Can you?" They looked at each other and simultaneously said, "No." Despite the pain, despite the danger, they both laughed. It was absurd. They were both injured. Assassins were unconscious in his apartment, and they were laughing. "We need to move," Thesara said, forcing herself to focus. "More will come." "Where?" "Deep sector. There are abandoned areas where refugees hide. I know someone." With significant difficulty and mutual support, they made it out of the apartment. Thesara guided them through maintenance corridors she'd memorized during her time on the station. Benjamin leaned heavily on her, his breathing shallow. She could feel his pain through their empathic connection, and she used her abilities to broadcast calm, trying to help manage his discomfort. They reached an abandoned storage facility in Sector 4. Thesara knocked in a specific pattern. The door opened to reveal an elderly Zethian woman with 4 arms and knowing eyes. "Commander," the woman said, "I heard you were on station. Come in." Inside, Thesara tended to Benjamin's injuries, while the Zethian woman named Cirrus secured the entrance. 2 ribs cracked, extensive bruising, but nothing life-threatening. Benjamin bore it stoically, only hissing slightly when she applied the medical patches. You took a hit for me, Thesara said softly. Why would you do that? Because you asked me not to run, he said. That goes both ways. I don't run. I don't let them take you. Same promise. You are insane. Yeah, probably. He managed a weak smile. But we've established we're both idiots, remember? Cirrus brought them water and something that passed for food. The hunters who came for you, Commander, they were Confederation hired. This is escalating. I know, Thesara said. My contact, Draven, was supposed to arrange transport. He has not responded. Draven is dead, Cirrus said bluntly. Killed 2 days ago. I am sorry. Thesara felt the news like a physical blow. Draven had been a friend, one of the few she'd trusted. How? Made to look like an accident, but we both know better. Ceres looked at Benjamin curiously. You are the human she has been staying with. Your emotional signature is all over her. She is calmer than I have seen her in years. That's the second weirdest compliment I've gotten this week, Benjamin muttered. Despite everything, Thesara felt a smile tug at her lips. Benjamin has a very grounding presence. It helps with my empathic overload. I see. Cirrus studied them both. You have bonded. No, Thesara said quickly. Sildari bonds are permanent, lifelong commitments. We have only known each other 3 days. Yet you breathe in sync. Your emotional patterns mirror each other. And when he was struck, you felt his pain as your own. Cirrus shook her head. Call it what you like, but you have bonded, formally or not. Thesara looked at Benjamin, who was looking back at her with equal confusion and something else. Recognition. I do feel you, Thesara admitted. Your emotions. Not just reading them, but experiencing them. When you were hit, it was like I was hit. I feel something too, Benjamin said. Not telepathic. I'm human. But I know when you're in pain. I know when you're afraid. And when you're near me, something in my chest that's been tight for 9 years loosens slightly. This is impossible, Thesara whispered. Bonds do not form accidentally. They require ritual, intention, consent from both parties. Perhaps not all bonds follow rules, Cirrus suggested. Perhaps some bonds form from necessity, from recognition, from two damaged souls finding each other in the dark. They stayed in Cirrus's shelter for the rest of the day. Benjamin needed to rest, and Thesara needed to think. The Confederation was clearly not giving up. Without Draven, her escape options were severely limited. I need to surrender, she said finally. Absolutely not, Benjamin said immediately. Benjamin, be reasonable. They will keep coming. They will hurt you to get to me. I cannot allow that. Too bad, not your choice. He sat up despite the pain. We find another way. There is no other way. Then we make one. His voice rose, then he winced and held his ribs. Sorry, but seriously, you don't get to martyr yourself to save me. I already tried that approach, and it doesn't work. This is different. How? You're trying to protect me by sacrificing yourself. I spent 9 years trying to honor Sophia and Luna by essentially ceasing to exist. Both strategies are cowardly. Thesara felt a flash of anger. Cowardly? Yes. Real courage isn't dying for someone, it's living for them. It's looking at a universe that broke you and saying, I'm still here, and I still choose connection. Benjamin met her eyes. You're running because you're terrified. Not of them, of me, of this. He gestured between them, of feeling something real again. You know nothing about what I feel. I know exactly what you feel because I feel it too. I'm terrified. I'm absolutely petrified that I'm starting to care about someone again, that I'm letting someone in past the walls. Because what if I lose you too? What if caring about you means poisoning you like I poisoned Sophia and Luna? The raw honesty in his voice stopped her cold. You are not poison. Neither are you. but we're both so convinced we're disasters that we'll destroy ourselves to prove it. Benjamin reached out and took her hand. I don't want to lose you, Thesara. Not to the Confederation, not to your fear, not to mine. I want to fight. With you. For you. Alongside you. Whatever it takes. Thesara felt tears spill down her cheeks, iridescent against her lavender skin. I am so tired of running. Then stop. Stand with me. We'll figure it out together. Together, she repeated, like the word was foreign. I have not had a together in 27 years. I haven't had one in 9. Maybe we're both overdue. Ceres, who had been watching from across the room, spoke up. If you want to stand and fight, you will need allies. And Commander, you will need to stop suppressing your abilities. You are stronger than you believe. My abilities are broken. I cannot control them. They are not broken. They are wounded. There is a difference. Ceres moved closer. You have been blocking them because the pain of connection reminds you of what you lost. But this human, he does not trigger overload. He soothes it. Have you asked yourself why? Thesara looked at Benjamin. His emotional presence is organized, structured. It is more than that. He has made peace with his pain, not erased it, but integrated it. When you sense his emotions, you sense that integration. That is why it calms you. He is showing you how to carry grief without being consumed by it. Benjamin shifted uncomfortably. I haven't made peace with anything. I'm a mess. You are, Ceres agreed cheerfully. But you are a functional mess. You work, you help others, you make choices to stay and fight. That is integration, whether you recognize it or not. Thesara felt something shift in her understanding. For 27 years, she'd viewed her broken bond as a failure. But what if Ceres was right? What if she wasn't broken, just wounded? And what if healing didn't mean returning to what she was, but becoming something new? I want to try something, she said to Benjamin. Will you trust me? Haven't I shown that already? This is different. I want to form a temporary telepathic connection. Not a soul bond, but a bridge, so I can show you something. Benjamin hesitated. Will it hurt you? It might, but I need to try. I need to understand what is happening between us. He nodded. Okay. What do I do? Just let me in. Thesara placed her hands on either side of Benjamin's face and opened her empathic abilities fully. Not shielded, not controlled, just open. She felt his presence rush in, and instead of overwhelming her, it anchored her. She pushed deeper, creating a temporary bridge between their minds. And through that bridge, she showed him everything. The beauty of a Sildari soul bond, the moment Kael'ren died and how it felt like having part of your soul ripped away. The 27 years of telepathic agony. And then, the peace she'd found in Benjamin's presence. In return, she felt his memories, the joy of holding Luna for the first time, Sophia's laugh, the horror of the pandemic, watching them die, 9 years of self-imposed exile, and then, carrying Thesara from the alley, the first moment in years he'd felt truly needed. When they separated, both were crying. I understand now, Benjamin whispered. What you lost, what you've carried. And I understand you, Thesara said. Why you stayed. Why you fight to help others but not yourself. They sat in silence for a moment, processing. Then Ceres said gently, So, what will you do? Thesara looked at Benjamin, and Benjamin looked back, and in that moment, they both made the same decision. We fight, they said together. Good, Ceres said. Then let me tell you about a friend who owes me a very large favor. He commands a ship, and he might be persuaded to take on some passengers with Confederation problems. As they began planning, Thesara felt something she hadn't felt in decades. Not hope, not yet, but possibility. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, survival wasn't the highest aspiration. maybe living was. The message from the Confederation came at dawn. Commander Velnath, we know you're on Refuge Station Omega-7. We know the human is helping you. Surrender within 12 hours, or we will designate the entire station as hostile territory and begin systematic searches. Many will suffer for your resistance. Benjamin watched Thessara's face as she listened to the message. Her iridescent patterns, which had been showing calm blues and purples since their telepathic connection, now flashed with angry reds and oranges. They would punish innocents to get to me, she said, her voice tight with rage. Thousands of refugees, all in danger because I will not submit. That's their choice, not yours, Benjamin said. But he understood her conflict. His medical oath had been, first, do no harm. Thessara's diplomatic training had similar principles. The idea of innocents suffering because of her was intolerable. Sirius's contact, a gruff Centaurian named Crag, had agreed to transport them off station, but his ship wouldn't arrive for another 18 hours, 6 hours too late. We could hide better, Benjamin suggested. Deep in the maintenance levels. They can't search the whole station in 12 hours. They will make examples, Thessara said. Random arrests, interrogations. I have seen the Confederation do this before. They will hurt people until someone gives me up. Then we don't give them the chance. A new voice spoke from the doorway. Mira, Benjamin's assistant from the clinic, stood there with 3 other humans. Doc, we heard what's happening. Half the people on this station owe you their lives. You think we're going to let some government goons threaten you? Mira, this isn't your fight. You made it our fight when you spent 9 years patching us up for free. She crossed her arms. We have a plan. Well, more like the beginning of a plan. We're still working on the details. What followed was the most chaotic strategy session Benjamin had ever witnessed. Mira's group connected them with others, merchants who used the clinic, security personnel Benjamin had treated, even some of the criminal elements who respected his neutral healer status. The consensus was clear. The community would protect them, but they needed to turn the situation from defensive to offensive. The evidence, Benjamin said suddenly. Thessara, you said you witnessed a conspiracy. You have proof? Yes. Data files encrypted in my neural implant. Proof that 3 Confederation counselors are planning to assassinate the Sildari ambassador to prevent a peace treaty. Then we don't hide. We broadcast. Benjamin turned to the group. We make it public. If the whole galaxy knows what they did, they can't silence her. They'd have to let her go. Broadcasting Confederation secrets from a neutral station would violate about 40 treaties, one of the security officers said. Good thing this is a lawless station, then, Mira replied with a grin. Thessara shook her head. It is not that simple. The files are encrypted with Sildari neural patterns. Only I can access them, and transmission requires specialized equipment, the kind only found in high-security communication hubs. The station has one, the security officer said. Central communications, but it's heavily monitored. Then we create a distraction, Benjamin said. The plan formed in his mind with the same clarity he felt during surgery. Something big enough that security has to respond but doesn't actually hurt anyone. Over the next hour, they crafted something that was either brilliant or completely insane. Probably both. Multiple simultaneous emergencies across the station. A reported chemical leak in Sector 8. A medical crisis in Sector 3 that would require Benjamin's presence, establishing his alibi. A domestic disturbance in Sector 12 that would draw security personnel away from central communications. And in the chaos, Thessara would slip into the communication hub and broadcast everything. This is extremely risky, Sirius warned. If they catch you before transmission completes, Commander, they will execute you immediately. I know, Thessara said. She looked at Benjamin. You should not come with me. Your presence would only increase the danger. Not having this argument again, Benjamin said firmly. You need someone to watch your back. I'm coming. You have broken ribs. Had worse. You have no combat training. I'm a fast learner. Benjamin, please, be reasonable. He took her hands in his, and through their growing empathic connection, he let her feel his determination. Thessara, I made a choice 3 days ago in that alley. I chose to stay. I choose it again now. Wherever you go, whatever you face, I'm there. Not because I'm brave, not because I'm useful in a fight, but because leaving you to face this alone would break something in me that 9 years of grief couldn't break. You matter to me, so I stay. Thessara felt tears form. Through their connection, she could sense his absolute sincerity. This human, this broken, beautiful human, had decided she was worth fighting for, worth risking everything for. You are the most stubborn man I have ever met. I'll take that as a compliment. It was not meant as one, but she was smiling. Very well. Together. Together, he agreed. The plan went into motion at 1400 hours. The fake chemical leak was reported, triggering evacuation protocols. Benjamin was called to Sector 3, where Mira had staged a convincing medical emergency involving an actor and some theatrical blood. Security personnel scrambled to respond to multiple simultaneous crises, and in the confusion, Thessara and Benjamin made their way to Central Communications. They encountered 2 guards at the entrance. Thessara used a telepathic technique she hadn't employed in years, projecting confusion and false memories. The guards suddenly became convinced they were supposed to be in Sector 8, dealing with the chemical leak. They left their post without question. That was impressive, Benjamin whispered as they entered. Also exhausting. I cannot do that many more times. Inside Central Communications, they found the main broadcast console. Thessara interfaced her neural implant with the system while Benjamin kept watch at the door. How long? He asked. 5 minutes to decrypt, 3 minutes to transmit. 8 minutes total if nothing goes wrong. When does anything not go wrong? Excellent point. Thessara worked quickly, her 3-fingered hands moving across holographic interfaces. Benjamin watched the corridor, his heart pounding. He was a doctor, not a spy. This was so far outside his expertise that it would be funny if the stakes weren't so high. 4 minutes passed, then 5. Thessara's patterns were flashing rapidly, showing her concentration and stress. Almost there, she murmured. Just need to bypass the final encryption layer. That's when Benjamin heard footsteps. Multiple sets, heavy boots, military cadence. Thessara, we have company. 30 more seconds. The footsteps got closer. Benjamin could see shadows at the end of the corridor. We don't have 30 seconds. Then you need to buy me time. Benjamin looked around desperately. He had no weapons, no training, and broken ribs. What he did have was a medical bag and a lot of improvisation experience. He stepped into the corridor just as 6 Confederation soldiers rounded the corner. They stopped, surprised to see a single human blocking their path. Can I help you, gentlemen? Benjamin asked, using his best calm doctor voice. I'm Dr. Corvus. There's been a medical emergency and I need you to stay back. Possible contagion. Stand aside, human, the lead soldier said. We're here for the Sildari fugitive. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just responding to a medical call. Benjamin opened his bag and pulled out a scanner, waving it at them like it was dangerous. This device is reading elevated viral particles. I need everyone to remain calm and answer some questions. Have any of you experienced fever, nausea, or unexplained rashes in the last 48 hours? The soldiers exchanged uncertain glances. Benjamin pressed his advantage, launching into a detailed explanation of fictional symptoms and transmission vectors, using every medical term he could remember. He made it sound terrifying and plausible. He bought Thessara 45 seconds. Then the lead soldier, smarter than his companions, said, He's stalling. Move him. 2 soldiers grabbed Benjamin and shoved him aside. Pain exploded through his broken ribs, and he gasped, collapsing against the wall. But those 45 seconds had been enough. Thessara emerged from Central Communications, and her iridescent patterns were blazing with triumph. It is done. Broadcasting on all major channels. The entire galaxy will know within minutes. The lead soldier's communicator immediately started buzzing with urgent messages. He listened, his expression darkening. Commander Velnath, you have committed a serious crime against the Confederation. I have exposed serious crimes by the Confederation, Thesara corrected. There is a difference. Benjamin pulled himself up, clutching his side. Through their empathic connection, Thesara felt his pain and her own anger flared. Your soldiers injured him. He interfered with Confederation business. He is under my protection. You have no authority here, fugitive. The standoff might have escalated, but Cirrus appeared with a group of station security and a crowd of residents. News of what Thesara had done was already spreading. The assassination plot was being discussed on every news channel. The Confederation counselors implicated were already being called to account. Commander Velnath, Cirrus said formally, station law grants temporary sanctuary to political refugees whose lives are in danger from their home governments. I am invoking that law on your behalf. The Confederation soldiers found themselves surrounded by an increasingly hostile crowd. Refugees who had fled various governments, merchants who valued the station's neutrality, and people who had been helped by Benjamin over the years. The lead soldier assessed the situation and made the smart choice. This isn't over, Commander. The Confederation has a long memory. So do I, Thesara replied. The soldiers withdrew. The crowd erupted in cheers, and Benjamin, finally letting adrenaline fade, slid down the wall and sat heavily on the floor. Thesara was beside him instantly. Are you hurt worse? Just tired, and my ribs definitely have opinions about being shoved into walls. He looked up at her. We did it. You did it. You bought me the time I needed. We did it, he insisted. Together, remember? She helped him to his feet, and they made their way back to Cirrus's shelter, through corridors full of people congratulating them, thanking them, celebrating. Benjamin felt overwhelmed by it all. He'd spent 9 years trying to be invisible, and now he was at the center of station-wide attention. Back in the shelter, Ceres treated his re-injured ribs while Thesara monitored the galactic news feeds. The story was everywhere. The Confederation was in damage control mode. The 3 counselors had been arrested. The Sildari ambassador they'd planned to kill was in protective custody and calling for a full investigation. You are safe, Ceres said to Thesara. The Confederation cannot touch you now without confirming everything you revealed. They will leave you alone. I am free, Thesara said, and the words sounded foreign on her tongue. I have not been free in months. So what will you do now? Ceres asked. Thesara looked at Benjamin, who was lying on a medical cot, looking exhausted but peaceful. Through their empathic connection, she could feel his emotions. Relief, satisfaction, and underneath it all, something new. Hope. I have no idea, Thesara admitted. For so long I have only focused on surviving the next day. I have not thought about an actual future. Perhaps that is the next adventure, Ceres suggested. Learning to build a future instead of just escaping a past. That night, after the excitement had died down and they were back in Benjamin's apartment, they sat together in comfortable silence. The station's artificial stars twinkled through the viewport, and for the first time in years, neither of them felt the crushing weight of their respective griefs. Thank you, Thesara said finally, for staying, for fighting, for making me believe I was worth saving. You saved yourself, Benjamin said. I just stood nearby and occasionally provided medical services. You did more than that. You showed me what it looks like to carry loss without letting it destroy you. You integrated your grief into your life instead of letting it become your entire life. Benjamin was quiet for a moment. I didn't feel integrated. I felt broken. We both were. Maybe we still are. Thesara took his hand. But I think perhaps we are broken in compatible ways. Your structure grounds my chaos. My empathic sense helps you externalize pain you have kept locked inside. We complement each other. Is that the Sildari way of saying we're good together? It is the Sildari way of saying I want to stay, if you will have me. Benjamin squeezed her hand. My apartment is small, the neighborhood is questionable, the coffee is terrible, and I come with 9 years of unprocessed trauma. I am a fugitive with broken telepathic abilities, 27 years of grief, and enemies across multiple star systems. So we're both disasters, complete disasters, Thesara agreed. Want to be disasters together? She smiled, her patterns glowing with soft, warm colors. I would like that very much. They fell asleep that night in the same room. Benjamin in his chair, Thesara on the bed, their breathing synchronized, and their dreams, for the first time in decades, touching on hope instead of dwelling in loss. 6 months passed on Refuge Station Omega 7, and Benjamin Corvus discovered that learning to live was harder than learning to survive. The clinic had expanded. With the publicity from the Confederation incident, donations had poured in from across the galaxy. They now had 3 exam rooms, a proper surgical suite, and 5 staff members, including Mira, who had proven to be an exceptional nurse practitioner. Benjamin and Thesara ran the clinic together. He handled physical medicine while she used her empathic abilities, now better controlled, to diagnose psychological trauma and emotional distress. They made a remarkable team, complementing each other's strengths and covering each other's weaknesses. But it wasn't easy. On bad days, Benjamin still woke up reaching for people who weren't there. He'd have moments where guilt would crash over him like a wave, and he'd struggle to remember why he deserved to be happy when Sophia and Luna never got that chance. On those days, Thesara would sit with him, not trying to fix it, not offering empty platitudes, just present. She'd let him feel what he needed to feel, and through their growing empathic bond, she'd project steady calm. Not smothering his grief, but reminding him it didn't have to consume him. Thesara had her own struggles. Sometimes her telepathic abilities would overwhelm her again, especially in crowded areas. The cacophony of thoughts and emotions would bring her to her knees, and sometimes, late at night, she'd feel the phantom pain of her broken soul bond with Kaelrin, and the loss would feel fresh as yesterday. On those nights, Benjamin would hold her hand and breathe with her, the grounding technique that had saved her life in that alley now a ritual of comfort. His emotional presence, steady and structured, would anchor her until the storm passed. They were healing. Not healed. Healing. There was a difference. One evening, they were closing the clinic when a family came in. Refugees from a mining colony, parents and a small child who couldn't have been more than 6 years old. The little girl had a fever and a cough, nothing serious, but the parents were frantic with worry. Benjamin examined her while Thesara used her empathic sense to calm the parents' anxiety. As he worked, Benjamin felt something unexpected, a tightness in his chest, but not the usual grief. This was different. This was fear. Fear that he'd missed something, that his treatment wouldn't work, that this child would suffer because he wasn't good enough. His hands started shaking. Thesara noticed immediately. Through their connection, she felt his panic. She moved beside him and placed her hand on his shoulder. Benjamin. Breathe. You know what this is? Respiratory infection, bacterial, treatable. You have done this 1,000 times. What if I'm wrong? What if I miss something? Then we will catch it and adjust. But you are not wrong. Look at her symptoms. Trust your training. Benjamin forced himself to focus. Thesara was right. This was straightforward. Simple antibiotics, fluids, rest. He administered the treatment, gave the parents instructions, and sent them home with medicine. After they left, he sat down heavily. I thought I was past this. The fear that I'll hurt someone. You will never be past it entirely, Thesara said gently. That fear is what makes you careful, what makes you thorough. The day you stop fearing mistakes is the day you should stop practicing medicine. How did you get so wise? 27 years of crippling anxiety gave me perspective. She sat beside him. Benjamin, that little girl reminded you of Luna. That is why you were afraid. He nodded slowly. Luna had been 6 when she died. This girl was the same age, same dark curly hair, same bright eyes. I saw her, and for a moment, I was back there. Back in our apartment in São Paulo, watching Sophia and Luna burn with fever, unable to help. But you did help. You saved that little girl tonight. You gave her parents peace. You used the pain of your past to inform the care of your present. That is not weakness. That is courage. Benjamin leaned against her, and she wrapped an arm around him. They sat like that for a while, 2 broken people holding each other together. Do you think Luna would be proud of me? He asked quietly. Or would she be sad that I left Earth, left everything behind? Thesara was quiet for a moment, then said, May I show you something? He nodded. She created a gentle telepathic bridge, the kind they'd practiced, and shared a memory. Not hers, but one she'd seen in Benjamin's mind during their first deep connection. Luna, age 5, coming home from school and proudly showing Benjamin a drawing. In the drawing, stick figures wearing doctor coats helped sick people. When I grow up, I want to help people like you, Papa, little Luna said in the memory. Thesara pulled back from the connection. Your daughter wanted to help people. You are doing exactly what she admired you for, just in a different place. I think she would be very proud. Benjamin felt tears spill down his cheeks, but for the first time in 9 years, they weren't only tears of grief, they were tears of release. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for staying, Thesara replied, for showing me that it is possible to carry the dead with honor while still living for yourself. They locked up the clinic and walked home through corridors that had become familiar. Refuge Station Omega-7 would never be Earth or Sildar, would never be the homes they'd lost. But it was home nonetheless. A home they'd chosen, built together from wreckage and hope. At the apartment, Benjamin made dinner. He'd gotten better at cooking, mostly because Thesara had refused to eat his early attempts and had insisted on teaching him properly. Tonight was pasta with synthetic marinara, simple but edible. As they ate, Thesara said, I received a message today, from Sildar, from the diplomatic corps. Benjamin looked up sharply. What did they want? They want me to return. The ambassador whose life I saved, she is personally requesting that I resume my position as a diplomatic commander. That's incredible. Benjamin's voice was carefully neutral, but through their empathic bond, Thesara felt his fear. Fear that she would leave. Fear of being alone again. I declined, Thesara said. What? Why? That's your career, your people, everything you worked for. It is my past, Thesara corrected. But it is not my future. My future is here. The clinic. Our work. You. Thesara, you can't give up your whole life for me. I am not giving up anything. I am choosing something better. I spent 187 years in diplomatic service. I was good at it. But I was not happy. Not truly. Even before Kaelrin died, I was going through motions, fulfilling duty. She reached across the table and took his hand. These last 6 months, working with you, helping people who genuinely need us, feeling like I am making a real difference in individual lives instead of playing political games. This is the first time I have felt actual purpose. I do not want to give that up. Are you sure? This is a huge decision. Benjamin, I have had 27 years to understand what matters to me. Connection matters. Purpose matters. You matter. Her patterns glowed with warm pinks and golds. Unless you want me to leave. No. The word came out fierce and immediate. No, I definitely don't want that. I just want to make sure you're choosing this for the right reasons. The right reason is that staying makes me happy? Is that sufficient? Benjamin smiled, and it reached his eyes in a way it hadn't for 9 years. Yeah, that's sufficient. They finished dinner in comfortable silence, then moved to the small couch Benjamin had recently acquired. It was used, salvaged from a cargo shipment, but it meant they could sit together instead of one in the chair and one on the bed. "I have been thinking," Thesara said, curled against his side, "about Kaelrin, about my broken bond. What about it? I spent 27 years believing I could never bond again, that the broken connection had damaged me permanently. But lately, with you, I have been feeling something. Not the same as what I had with Kaelrin. Different, but still profound." Benjamin's heart rate picked up. "What are you saying?" "Sildari soul bonds are permanent, lifelong, telepathic connections between partners. They require ritual and mutual consent to form properly. But there are stories, old stories, of bonds that form naturally between compatible souls. Unintentional bonds built slowly through proximity and choice. Are you saying we're forming a bond, like a real Sildari bond? I am saying I feel connected to you in ways that go beyond empathic sensing. I feel you even when you are not near. I know when you are in pain or distress. Your emotional state affects mine and mine affects yours. We breathe in synchronization. Our sleep cycles have aligned. These are all markers of early bond formation." Benjamin processed this. "But I'm human. I don't have telepathic abilities." "No, but you have emotional clarity. You have integrated your grief in ways most beings never achieve. Your emotional presence is strong enough that I can sense it, bond to it, be stabilized by it. The bond would not be telepathic in the traditional sense, but it would be real. And you want this? With me?" Thesara turned to face him fully. "Benjamin Corvus, you are the most stubborn, self-sacrificing, broken man I have ever met. You make terrible coffee, you cannot cook without detailed instructions, and you have more emotional baggage than a cargo freighter, and I cannot imagine my life without you in it. So yes, I want this." Benjamin laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. "That is possibly the worst romantic declaration I've ever heard. Would you like me to try again with more flattery?" "No, it was perfect." He cupped her face gently. "I'm just as much of a disaster. I'm old by human standards. I have trauma that will probably need professional help eventually. I'm not diplomat material or anything impressive. I'm just a doctor who couldn't save the people he loved most. You are a doctor who stayed with a dying alien because she asked you not to run. You are a man who risks his life to help strangers. You are someone who taught me that grief and love can coexist, that being broken does not mean being worthless." Her silver eyes reflected the room's dim lighting. "You are everything I need." They kissed, tentative at first, then deeper. It was not the passionate kiss of new lovers, but the steady kiss of two people choosing each other deliberately, with full knowledge of each other's damages and strength. When they pulled apart, Thesara's iridescent patterns were glowing with colors Benjamin had learned meant contentment and joy. "So we try this? We see if a bond forms naturally?" "We try," Benjamin agreed. "No pressure, no expectations, just two disasters figuring it out together." "I like that plan." They spent the rest of the evening talking about practical things, the clinic's expansion plans, the new equipment arriving next week. The hybrid child Thesara had been working with who was showing remarkable progress in managing cross-species physiology. Normal things, future things, not running from the past, not drowning in loss, but actually planning for tomorrow. It felt strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. Later, as they prepared for sleep, Benjamin finally did something he hadn't been able to do in 9 years. He took the photograph from his jacket pocket and placed it on the shelf beside the bed where he could see it. Sophia and Luna smiled at him from frozen time. Thesara noticed. "You took it out." "Yeah, I realized something tonight. They're not just symbols of my guilt anymore. They're my family. They were real, They were loved, and they deserve to be remembered as more than the people I lost. They were the people who made me who I am. That is beautiful. Benjamin looked at the photo for a long moment, then said softly, "Sophia Luna, I want you to meet someone. Her name is Thesara. She's helping me remember how to live. I think you'd like her. I think you'd tell me to stop being dramatic and let myself be happy. So I'm trying. I hope that's okay." Thesara moved beside him and looked at the photo. "Thank you for sharing them with me. They were beautiful." They were. Benjamin turned to her. "And they're gone. And I'm still here. And for the first time since they died, I'm grateful to be here. Not guilty, grateful. Because being here meant finding you." They held each other as the station's lights dimmed for night cycle. Two people who had been broken by loss, finding wholeness, not by forgetting their pain, but by sharing it. By choosing, every day, to stay. The next weeks and months continued to unfold. The clinic thrived. Benjamin and Thesara became fixtures in the station community, the human doctor and the Sildari empath who helped anyone who needed it. They had fights, real ones, about treatment protocols, about Benjamin working too many hours, about Thesara taking risks with her empathic abilities, but they learned to fight constructively, to communicate, to give each other space when needed and support when necessary. They celebrated victories, a successful surgery on a Zentarii engineer, a breakthrough with a traumatized refugee child, the day the clinic could finally afford a real medical scanner instead of the cobbled-together salvage they'd been using. They mourned losses, patients who couldn't be saved, news from Earth about Benjamin's remaining family members, the anniversary of Kael'ren's death, which hit Thesara hard. Through it all, the bond between them grew. Not the instant magical connection of stories, but the slow, steady building of trust and partnership. The kind of love that comes from choosing someone every single day, through good days and bad, through joy and grief. 1 year after they met, Benjamin woke up and realized he hadn't immediately thought about Sophia and Luna. He'd thought about Thesara, about the clinic, about the day ahead. The realization made him panic briefly until he understood what had happened. He hadn't forgotten his family. He'd integrated them. They were part of his story, forever cherished, but no longer the only story he was telling himself. He was living again. Actually living, not just surviving. Thesara woke to find him staring at the ceiling with tears on his face. Through their bond, which had indeed formed naturally over the months, she felt his emotions. Not sadness. Release. "You are healing," she said softly. "I am," he agreed. "Thanks to you." "Thanks to us," she corrected. "I could not have healed without you either. We did this together." "Together," he repeated, and pulled her close. I liked the sound of that. The final piece of their story came 6 months later, on an ordinary Tuesday that became extraordinary. Benjamin was treating a patient when Thesara burst into the exam room, her patterns flashing with excitement. "Benjamin, I need you to come with me, now. I'm in the middle of a procedure. Mira can finish. This is important." Something in her voice made him immediately hand off to Mira and follow Thesara. She led him through the station to a docking bay where a small Sildari diplomatic vessel was moored. Standing at the entrance was an elderly Sildari woman with pure white floating hair and patterns that shimmered with wisdom. She looked at Thesara with profound affection. "Teacher Velmyra," Thesara said, pressing her hands together in a formal Sildari greeting. "I did not expect you." I had to see for myself the human who accomplished the impossible. Velmyra turned her silver eyes to Benjamin. "You are Dr. Benjamin Corvus." "I am," Benjamin said cautiously. "I am Velmyra, High Teacher of the Sildari Bonding Council. I have known Thesara since she was a child. When I heard she had formed a new bond after 27 years of suffering with a broken connection, I had to investigate." Benjamin looked at Thesara. "You told your people about us?" "I had to report the bond formation. It is required by our laws. Bonds are sacred to Sildari. They must be recorded. Velmyra stepped closer to Benjamin, studying him intently. I have scanned your neural patterns, Dr. Corvus. You have no latent telepathic abilities. You are completely human. And yet, you have formed what appears to be a genuine soul bond with Commander Velnath. This should be impossible. I'm told we make a habit of that, Benjamin said. The old teacher laughed. Indeed. Dr. Corvus, may I examine your bond more closely? It will require telepathic contact. Benjamin looked at Thesara, who nodded encouragingly. It is an honor. High teachers rarely offer direct examination. Okay, Benjamin agreed. Velmyra placed her hands on Benjamin's temples, and he felt a presence in his mind. Not invasive like he'd feared, but gentle, curious. She examined the connection between him and Thesara, following its contours, like a doctor examining a patient. When she pulled back, her expression was wondering. Extraordinary. Commander Velnath, this is not a traditional soul bond, but it is no less real. This human has formed an empathic resonance with you. His emotional clarity creates a psychic anchor point that stabilizes your damaged telepathic centers. In turn, your empathic nature has awakened dormant emotional awareness in him. What does that mean? Benjamin asked. It means you have created something new, a hybrid bond between human and Sildari, built on mutual healing and chosen partnership. It is beautiful, and it proves something I have long believed, that bonds are not solely biological. They are spiritual. They form between compatible souls regardless of species. Velmyra turned to Thesara. You were my most troubled student after Kael'ren died. I feared you would never recover. But this human, this ordinary, wonderful human, did what 27 years of therapy and meditation could not. He taught you that new love does not diminish old love, that healing does not mean forgetting. He stayed, Thesara said simply. When everyone else ran, he stayed, because I asked him not to run. And that choice, Velmyra said, that simple, stubborn choice to stay, saved both of you. She turned to Benjamin. Dr. Corvus, you are a remarkable being, not because you have special powers or abilities, but because you made a choice to care when caring was difficult. That is true humanity. That is what your species' contribution to the galaxy, the stubborn refusal to abandon those who need help. Benjamin felt his throat tighten. I'm not special. I just didn't want to leave her alone. Exactly, Velmyra said with a knowing smile. You are human. You stay. You help. You choose connection over safety. That is your power. Never doubt its significance. She pressed her hands together in formal farewell. I came to verify the bond for our records. I leave having witnessed something profound. Thesara, you have my blessing. Dr. Corvus, you have my gratitude for giving me back a student I thought lost to grief. After she left, Benjamin and Thesara stood in the docking bay, processing everything. So we have an official bond, Benjamin said. Recognized by your people. We do. Does that frighten you? No. He took her hand, feeling the by now familiar warmth of their connection. It feels right, like we took something broken and built something new from the pieces. That is exactly what we did, Thesara agreed. And we will keep building, day by day, choice by choice. They walked back to the clinic hand in hand. Two healers who had healed each other, ready to face whatever came next, together. The story of Benjamin Corvus and Thesara Velnath spread through Refuge Station Omega-7 and beyond. Not as a grand epic of heroes and villains, but as a quiet testament to what it means to stay, to choose someone in their broken moments and say, I'm not leaving. Their clinic continued to grow. They trained others in their hybrid approach, combining physical medicine with empathic psychology. They saved lives. They built a community. They lived. Benjamin never forgot Sophia and Luna. Their picture remained on his shelf, And sometimes he still had days when grief was heavy. But those days no longer defined him. He had learned to carry his love for his lost family alongside his love for the future he was building. Thesara never stopped feeling the phantom ache of her broken bond with Kael'ren. But she learned that hearts can hold multiple loves, that new connections don't erase old ones. They expand capacity for joy. Together they proved that healing isn't linear. It isn't clean. And it doesn't mean erasing pain. Healing means integration. It means taking the broken pieces and building something new, something that honors what was lost while embracing what can be found. Because the most human thing, the most profound thing any being can do is to look at someone drowning in their own pain and simply stay. Not to fix them, not to save them, but to be present. To say, I see your broken parts, and I choose to stay anyway. That's what Benjamin taught Thesara. That's what humanity brings to the galaxy. Not superior technology or military might, but the stubborn, beautiful insistence on connection. The refusal to abandon those who need help, even when helping is hard. 3 simple words that changed everything. I'm not running. Have you ever had someone stay when everyone else left? Have you ever been that person who stayed? Write the word Angkor in the comments and let me know where you're from. If this story touched you, if you've ever felt too broken to be worthy of love, hit that like button. Subscribe so you don't miss more stories about the strength it takes to be vulnerable, to choose connection, to keep showing up for people who matter. Turn on notifications. Share this with someone who needs to hear that broken doesn't mean worthless. Thank you for letting me share this story of 2 disasters who found each other in the dark and built something beautiful from their broken pieces. Remember, you don't have to be healed to be worthy of love. You just have to be willing to let someone stay. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is ask someone not to run, and the most powerful thing they can do is honor that request. Until next time, keep choosing connection. Keep choosing to stay.